Augustine was born in North African backwater, a little town named Tagaste, and he was born to actually what would have been conceived of almost as a mixed race family. His father, Patricius, was a Latin, seems to have been a Roman immigrant. His mother, Monica, seems to have been a Barbour, or a North African native of some level. And he was raised in that context. He seems to have had siblings. He was clearly the pride and joy of his parents. Again, I said earlier, his name, Augustine, seems to suggest, no pressure kid. He was a clever kid, and he went to the best schools, and his parents were able to get him basically a scholarship to go study also in Carthage, which he was able to do as well. And he ended up, at this point, not yet a Christian. His mother was Christian, his father was resolutely pagan. But he ended up getting one of the best educations he could get. And then from his time in Carthage, he actually went to Rome, where he was a professor, effectively, of literature and rhetoric in Rome, where he met many of the bigwigs of that world and gained enough respect among them to be moved to Milan, which is where the emperor was. And he was effectively hired as the kind of one of the rhetors, one of the speechifiers for the emperor in Milan. All of this when he was not a Christian. As a young man, he had become a Manichae, which is a kind of, at this point, a quasi-Christian status, although it seemed to be more philosophically respectable because it was disdainful of the Christian Old Testament, the Jewish Bible, and clearly a much more elitist system. Didn't need to have as much connection with the great unwashed. So in the Roman society of that time, a very hierarchical society, Manichaeanism was a respectable kind of philosophical position. But when he was in Milan, he met and began to study the Bishop Ambrose. He studied him initially as a rhetor, as a speechwriter. He admired him as a speaker. And then as time went on, though, he found that his philosophical questions were more and more being asked and answered in the Christian idiom that Ambrose was giving him than in the language that he had found himself attractive earlier, either a Manichaean language or another kind of skeptical or philosophical language.